The emphasis on this podcast is actually going to be minor chords, how you can play those minor chords using the cage system all along the neck. Watch this right now if you're not sure about major and minor triads, because this is where I explain what a major triad and a minor triad is. If you already know those things, then skip to the next part where we talk about the minor chords. In this lecture, we're going to take a look at major and minor chord triads. Now, if you already feel very familiar with this concept, then I suggest you skip ahead to the next lecture. Otherwise, take in this valuable information that's going to be useful as we go forward. Now let's talk about triads. We already mentioned that a chord, to be considered a chord, has to have 3 notes. Well, in chord theory, what we do is we construct chords using the odd numbers. Now, a basic chord triad is the 1st, 3rd, and the 5th taken from the scale that we're using. Now, in this case, we're using a major scale. If you count the number of half steps between the 1st and the 3rd note, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. And that red dot there on the E, that represents a major 3rd interval. Now, there's a major 3rd and a minor 3rd. And the difference is a half step. So if you move that back there, and instead of playing the E, you play the E flat, then that would create what's called a minor triad, a minor chord triad. So that would be the chord of C minor. Now, the 5th in all cases does not change when we're talking about a basic chord triad. So let's see how that sounds on a guitar. Now, I'm going to play the basic. So I'm going to play the chord that we had here, which is like a C chord. If I take those first 3 notes, those are the notes that are in that particular chord. Now if I move this back a half step like this, you can see how just changing that one note changes the quality of that chord, and it becomes a minor chord. So one more thing to consider here is that when you count 1, 2, 3 half steps, that's a minor 3rd interval. And when you count 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, that's a major 3rd interval. So a major chord is made up of a major 3rd interval, and then stacked on top of it is a minor 3rd interval. And likewise, a minor chord is made up of a minor 3rd interval, and then stacked on top of it is a major 3rd. So throughout these podcasts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a particular system of color coding so that when I put, these are dots on the fretboard. So when I put a dot here, you'll know what the root, 3rd, 5th, and later on I'm going to be adding 7ths and then other notes after that. So basically the system I've come up with is the black notes will be the root note, the red notes will be the 3rds, and the blue will be the 5ths. All right, so here if you take a look at the C chord, so the red will be the root note, this is going to be a 3rd, a major 3rd, this is going to be a 5th, and then over here you have another root and another major 3rd. But what we're going to be doing in this episode is taking a look at minor chords. Now, the way minor chords are constructed is you have a root note, you have a minor 3rd, and then you have the 5th on top of it. So what that means is I'm going to use a different little thing here. So what we'll do is we'll take the 3rd and we'll go 1 fret back, which we call in the United States a half step, and that would actually be a minor chord there. So this would be a minor triad, and that would be a C chord, right? So you could also include that note. Now if you included that note, then that's going to sound not too good. So we're going to just remove that note in this case. So if you want to play a minor chord using this C shape, then this is how you would play. First of all, I'm going to go through all of the chords in the open position. So if we take, let's go through the whole system. So C, A, G, E, D. So the A chord, we're going to have the root there on the A string, right? So it's going to be E string, A string, D string, G, B, E. So typically what we're going to be playing there is we're going to be playing a fifth over here, and then you have another root note right there. And then if you're playing a major, right, a major third will be right there. And then this will be another fifth over here. All right, so what we'll do is we swap that one. I'm going to move that one back, and I'm just going to put that one there to show that that's a minor third. Incidentally, in jazz notation, you'll see very often they use a minus sign to indicate whether a chord is major or minor. Most people learning their first chords on guitar, they learn this one as an A minor shape. Let's take a look at the G chord now. Now the G chord is done like this. So you got the first, third, and the fifth, and here's another root note, and here's another third, and here's another root note. So you've actually got three. If you play chords across, if you play all 6 strings, then you're actually playing 3 different octaves of the G. Now, a lot of times you don't play all of those notes. You don't need to, but if you're strumming, that's a very normal way to strum a G chord. And you could also do this a little bit different way. But you could fret that note right there, and you play a fifth there, which is kind of it's a little bit brighter way to play a G chord. Now, and if you're playing a G chord, if you're playing a G minor chord, so what we need to do again, we take the third. So you look for the red one. Let's make that a minus now, right? And I don't have another one for now. This one you cannot go any lower on that string because it's already tuned to B. So you could play any of these notes in different combinations. Now another thing that you could do, let's say you could take these 4 like that. That would be a valid G chord. Another way to do this is, since that's a B flat, since the third is a B flat, there's another B flat right there. So you could play this like that with an open D. So it's 3, playing across the 3rd fret, and then leaving the D in the bass. All right, so that's the G chord. All right, next chord is C, A, G, E. Let's take all these off again. Start from scratch. All right. Okay, the E chord. So typically an E chord, you've got 2 E's on the outside, and you've got one right there, and then we can put this. We put this fifth over here, and then if you're playing just an E major chord, is like that, and we've got something missing here, which is another fifth. All right, so that's our typical 6-string strumming E chord, right? So again, what we do, look for the third, and we're going to make that like that. So this is a typical chord that you learn, typical that anybody learning guitar learns. It's an E minor chord. All right, so that's simple enough right there. You've only got 1/3 in that whole series of notes there, so that's easy to play like that. All right, so next one is the D chord, right? So let's go take a look. The D chord, we have a D string here, so we put that one right there, and then we're playing the fifth will be played right here, and then let's see what notes we've got here. We've got another D over here, and then that's your major chord. So again, you want to take that third and make it a minor third, right? So that's the typical D chord. So then what we'll need to do now is take a look at how those look when we take them up the fretboard. For our first chord, here's how it sounds. So that's a C major. Okay, so that's our C chord, which you typically play like that. I'm moving that one back like that, and then we've got to really avoid playing that E string right there, which is really going to sound terrible. It's like this, right? So that's, now you might wonder, is that really usable? Well, yes, it is. You could use that, yes, sure. It's not the one that you find in most chord books, but it's a usable chord. The next shape is the A shape, which will be here if you're playing a major chord like that. Or I tell you what, let's do it like this. We'll call this is going to be the third fret now. So, right, so you're playing like this. If you want to play another fifth on there, you can play that one. So what you would do here is this would be a bar chord if you want to play this. Play that like that. So that is our C minor chord. So let's imagine now that this is going to be the fifth fret. So the next one is going to be this position. The major third is going to be there, right? And then you have these other notes. So you could have a choice of like this, right? Like that. You can play those notes. We're playing those like that, which is, now if you wanted to play the upper strings, you could do something like this, which is kind of getting into the next chord, which is the E shape. All right, so that's the G shape. So G, E will be the next one. So let's imagine that I'm going to take these down here like that. So your E shape is going to be, let's take these off, and typically you've got for the, I'm sorry, right there. So we've got the E shape, the fifth is here, and typically it's like that, right? And then this would be another fifth right there. So typically this E minor shape. So for the big old bar chord, so we're playing the C chord. C minor shape is like that, right? So that's pretty straightforward. And then the next one, let's take this. This is a root note right here. Let's imagine that this is now on the 10th fret. That's the 10th fret now. We want to construct this chord like this, and here is going to be the 5th. And typically, this is going to be the major third. So the major chord. And then if you want to play it as a minor, we're taking this one, and we're making this into a minor third, right? So it's like that. So now I have a question for you. We have C, A, G, E, D. Which one do you think is the odd one out? Well, it's C, because all of the other chords have a string associated with them, right? So this one, there is no C string on a guitar tuned to a standard tuning. But all of the other chords, you got the C, A, G, and the E, two E strings, and then D. You got the D open string. So that gives us an advantage, which means that if you know all of the notes there, even if you don't know what all the notes are of the fretboard, you know everything at the 12th fret, because the 12th fret just gives you an octave of each note, right? So that means that if you're using those cage chords, you can take some of the notes. Let's take a look at the let's take a look at these three chords that we want to play right now. We have an A, E, and a D. So A string is right there. So what can you do there? You can play this C-shaped chord like that. All right, and then the next one is the E chord. So there's an E string. E string is here. So what can we play there? Well, we can play this E shape, or rather G shaped chord. So this is like this, right? And then the next one is a D chord. So the D chord, we know we have a D string right there. So what do we play there? So we can play this E shaped chord, which we can think of like that. But because there's a root there and a root there, so you can play this. That is now that's a D. You're playing a D chord there. You don't believe me? There's a D chord, right? Here's an E chord, or rather an A chord, using the C shape. So what was the other one? And the other one was the what didn't I just do? Oh, the E, right? So the E. So now what we're going to do is play through those chord. The chord progression is A, E, D, A. All right, so it's going to be A, and A. Now these positions that I showed you, there are more things there are more positions you could play this in, and if you can experiment with this and find all different kinds of positions. I just want to show you these three, because I think these are kind of good ones to get started with. So what we'll do is we'll go through this twice in each position. Going to start in this position, playing the A chord, go up to this position to play the A chord, and then go up to this position playing the A chord. Now what I'm going to do when I get to here, I'm going to hold down an E on the 12th fret, and that will give it an interesting, it'll give it a more bright sound. Right, so let's try with the backing track. Here we go. This is the backing track. So I'll let it play through one time. One, two, three, four. There we go. So if you like this, give me the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one.